It's my son's 35th birthday, and the house is filled with laughter that somehow doesn't reach me. Balloons dangle from the ceiling, their colors bright, but their sway oddly slow, as though weighed down by something unseen. The scent of roasted chicken and buttered rolls hangs heavy in the air, reminding me of the meals I used to cook when it was just him and me, back when we didn't have much but we had each other. On the dining table, among the glittering plates and half-empty glasses, I notice a small, ordinary envelope tucked beneath his wine glass. To anyone else, it might seem like a simple card, but I know the handwriting on it, my late wife's handwriting. The sharp loops of her letters pierce me instantly. She's been gone for over a decade, and yet here her presence is resting silently under his hand. I freeze my fork suspended in the air. That single envelope transforms the moment from celebration to something else entirely. A whisper from the past, a warning, perhaps. I wonder if he even realizes it's there or if someone placed it deliberately where only I would see. I shift my eyes to him. My son. The boy I raised after his mother passed. The boy whose scraped knees I bandaged, whose school plays I never missed, whose voice once called me hero. He doesn't look at me now. 3 years of strained silence stretch between us across this very table, even as guests chatter all around. He laughs with his friends, his wife at his side, but the sound feels foreign. Not the boy I knew, not the man I hoped he would become. I press my hand against my chest, feeling the folded letter in my own pocket. A different letter, one I've carried for months. It was supposed to be my gift for tonight, though not the kind of gift he expects. I had imagined giving it quietly, with warmth perhaps bridging the gap that has grown so wide between us. But with that envelope on the table, I sense the night may not unfold as I planned. The air thickens, and even the clinking of glasses seems too loud. I study his face. There's a sharpness in his jawline, a defensiveness in his eyes when they briefly flicker to me. It's as though my presence here unsettles him, though I was invited or rather pressured to attend by relatives who thought reconciliation was overdue. My chest tightens. I know it's coming even before it arrives. The envelope, his silence, the distance, all signs point to a storm waiting to break. I reach for my water glass, but my hand trembles slightly. I tell myself it's just age, just nerves. But deep down, I know better. It's fear. Not fear of him, not exactly. Fear of what truth might finally come to the surface tonight. And then it hits me, the early stakes. A thought I've buried for too long. What if tonight at this birthday dinner I not only lose the fragile thread of connection with my son, but also face the truth that betrayal has been in the making for years? The kind of betrayal that leaves scars no celebration can cover. The room bursts into a birthday song, voices rising together. I join in, but my voice cracks, the words hollow. The cake has brought out candles glowing like tiny promises that never quite materialize. My son leans forward to blow them out at his wife's hand on his shoulder, their guest smiling. But for me, the flickering light casts shadows that stretch far deeper. And then as he raises his head again, his eyes meet mine for a brief piercing second. Cold, distant, a stranger's eyes. I clutch the edge of the table, steadying myself. This dinner isn't just about cake and candles. It's about something waiting in the dark. Something that has been building silently. I can feel it pressing closer with every beat of my heart. I take a breath and whisper to myself, I thought I came here to celebrate. But I realize now, this is a reckoning. And that was only the beginning. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. The birthday song fades, and with it the chatter that filled the room only moments ago. Plates clink faintly, chairs creak, but beneath it all stretches a silence so heavy I can almost hear it pressing down on my chest. No one else notices it, not yet. But I do. I always have. My son lifts his glass for a toast, the golden liquid catching the light. To 35 years, he says with a forced smile. The room answers with scattered cheers, but his eyes never touch mine. They dart everywhere else, his wife, his friends, the decorations on the wall, but not me. I sip from my glass anyway, though the water tastes metallic bitter, as if the silence has seeped into it. It's strange how silence works. It doesn't come all at once. It builds. It hides in the corners of conversations and glances left unanswered, in the weight of words unsaid. Tonight, that silence feels like another guest at the table sitting between us, separating father from son more effectively than miles ever could. I glance around the table. His wife leans close to him, whispering something that makes him laugh, a laugh too sharp, too rehearsed. The sound doesn't soften the silence. It only sharpens it further. I notice her hand resting on his arm, like a claim, like a subtle reminder that he belongs to her world, now not mine. I think of the years I spent raising him alone, the scraped knees, the missed meals, the nights I worked late shifts to keep the lights on. He doesn't remember the way the heater broke one winter and I piled blankets on him until he was warm. He doesn't remember how I sold my only watch to buy him new shoes for school. He doesn't remember, or maybe he chooses not to. The silence grows heavier. Even the laughter of guests seems muffled, distant, like echoes from another world. My heart pounds against my ribs. I want to speak, to say something that cuts through the stillness, but my throat locks up. Words feel dangerous here, too sharp, too final. A slice of cake is set before me, the frosting thick and sweet. I stare at it but don't pick up my fork. My son notices, I think. His eyes flicker toward me for the briefest moment, then away again like a man touching a hot stove. That glance alone tells me everything. There's something he wants to say, something he's holding back, and the silence is preparing the stage for it. The envelope beneath his glass catches my eye again. My late wife's handwriting, bold and certain, as though she were sitting here among us. The way her letters curve, sharp where mine were always soft. Reminds me of the arguments we used to have late at night, always ending with her voice gentler than it began. I feel her presence now, as though she is urging me to wait, to let the silence run its course. The air grows colder, or maybe it's just me. I rub my hands together, trying to shake off the chill. Across the table, a guest is telling a joke and everyone laughs. But not my son. He just nods faintly, his eyes narrowing on me at last. There it is, the moment I've been dreading. The silence breaking not with words of kindness, but with the weight of something darker. He sets his glass down hard, the envelope trembling beneath it. The sound rings louder than it should, cutting across the laughter. The room stills. My son opens his mouth, but for a beat he says nothing. The silence answers for him, carrying his anger before his words even form. And then it comes, a sharp intake of breath. His jaw tightens, his lips press thin, his eyes bore into mine, cold and unwavering. "Why are you even here?" he says, his voice low but laced with venom. The silence shatters, but not into noise, into something worse, into a void that swallows every other sound in the room. Forks freeze halfway to mouths, conversations die mid-sentence. I feel every eye turning toward me, the father who raised him, the man who has suddenly become the outsider in his own son's house. I force a smile, though my hands tremble beneath the table. I tell myself not to answer yet. Not here, not now. But the silence that follows his words is not just heavy anymore. It's suffocating. And in that silence I realize something chilling. This is only the first strike. His voice has broken the stillness once, but there will be more. The storm is only beginning to gather. Silence has its own way of speaking, and tonight it is screaming. After his words cut through the room, the air doesn't return to normal. Conversations don't resume the way they used to after family squabbles. No, the silence lingers thick and restless, crawling into every corner of the dining room. Guests lower their eyes, suddenly fascinated by their plates, unwilling to be caught staring at the rift widening between father and son. I force myself to look away from him, away from the anger still simmering in his face. My eyes wander, searching for something, anything that will ground me. And that's when I see it. On the far wall, just above the sideboard where his wife has arranged her best china, hangs a framed photograph. At first, it looks ordinary, like any family portrait. But as my gaze sharpens, my chest tightens. It's a photograph I remember all too well, taken when my son was only 10 years old. He's standing between me and his mother, grinning with 2 missing front teeth, his arms flung around us both. It was the last photograph we ever took as a complete family before her illness took her away. I remember the day clearly, the camera flash, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear, the way his small hand gripped mine so tightly as though he feared I'd let go. But something about the photograph is wrong. In the frame that hangs here tonight, my figure is barely visible. Cropped. Only half my face remains at the edge of the picture, as if I were an afterthought, an uninvited guest. The photo has been deliberately trimmed, recast to tell a different story, a story where I never fully belonged. My breath catches. Did he do this himself, or was it her, his wife, the one who's never disguised her disdain for me? Whoever it was, the message is clear. In this house, my presence is not just unwanted, it's erased. I feel the room tilt slightly, though no one else notices. I grip the table edge, my fingertips whitening, and swallow hard. That photograph, it isn't just an image. It's a declaration, a rewriting of history, one I lived and bled for. The ordinary has turned sinister. As I stare, memories unspool in my mind. The day we took that picture, my son insisted on wearing his favorite red sweater, even though it was too warm outside. He spilled orange juice down the front, and I spent the afternoon scrubbing it out while his mother laughed. It was a small moment, a trivial thing, but it was ours. A fragment of family life, imperfect yet precious. Now, standing in that frame, my half-erased face stares back at me with ghostly accusation. Across the table, my son shifts, following my gaze. For a brief second, his eyes flicker with something guilt recognition, perhaps even shame. But he looks away quickly, hiding behind his glass. His wife notices too. Her lips curl in the faintest smile, one that doesn't reach her eyes. I understand then that this isn't accidental. This is intentional. The silence around me grows heavier, still, almost unbearable. The laughter from earlier feels like it belongs to another world, a world where my son still clung to me, still trusted me. That world is gone. What remains is this photo cropped, distorted, weaponized. And as I sit there, my pulse hammering in my ears, one thought claws its way through my mind. If he's willing to erase me from a photograph, how long before he erases me from his life entirely? I pick up my fork at last, pretending to eat, though my mouth is dry and the food tastes like ashes. My eyes return again and again to the photograph, drawn to its absence as much as its presence. I realize then that objects tell their own stories even when people stay silent. That frame on the wall is speaking louder than any toast, louder than any birthday song. And I fear the story it tells is only just beginning. But I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. The photograph still burns in my vision, but I force myself to look down, to retreat inside my own memories before I crumble right here at the table. I remember a time when life felt simpler, when storms meant nothing more than a leaky roof in winter or an unpaid electricity bill. I raised my son alone after his mother passed, and those early years were a constant balancing act. The world wasn't kind to a single father back then. People whispered behind my back, some even told me I should send him to relatives who could do better. But I couldn't. He was all I had, and I swore I would never let him feel abandoned. I think back to one night in particular years ago. He was 7, running a fever so high his small body shook. I didn't own a car then, so I carried him in my arms through 2 miles of rain to the nearest clinic. My clothes clung to me like ice, my shoes filled with water, but I held him close, whispering over and over, "You're safe. You're safe." When the doctor finally said he'd recover, I cried silently in the waiting room, my tears mixing with the rain still dripping from my hair. And then there were the small victories, his first soccer match when he scored a goal and ran straight to me in the stands, waving his arms proudly. The way he clung to my neck on the first day of school, refusing to let go until I promised I'd be there waiting when the bell rang. These were the storms we weathered, and in my mind they forged a bond stronger than blood itself. But bonds, it seems, are not unbreakable. Not when resentment takes root, not when silence stretches over years. The clink of silverware around me drags me back to the present. The storm I feel now isn't rain or fever. It's betrayal, quiet and suffocating. It builds in the stolen glances, in the cropped photograph in the envelope that still sits beneath his glass. His wife laughs suddenly, too loud, the sound sharp enough to make me flinch. She leans close to him again, whispering something I can't hear, and his lips twist into a smile that doesn't reach his eyes. Once upon a time he smiled differently, open, boyish, full of light. Now his smiles are weapons, barbed and deliberate. I cut into the slice of chicken on my plate, but I don't taste it. My fork scrapes the porcelain, echoing louder than it should. I notice my son's hand tighten on his glass again. His knuckles whiten, a small sign, but one I can't ignore. The storm is coming, I think, and when it breaks, nothing will be the same. I steal another glance at the photograph. Half of me gone, half of me erased. I try to steady myself by recalling another memory, his mother's voice, soft but strong, telling me once he'll grow and he'll test you. Don't forget, storms don't destroy roots if the roots are deep enough. But what if the roots have been poisoned? I sip my water, but the bitterness lingers. I catch a cousin across the table watching me, concern flickering in her eyes. She senses it too. Families always know when the air shifts, when thunder gathers just beyond the horizon. I place my hand on my pocket again, feeling the folded paper hidden there. My letter, my gift. Proof of something he doesn't know yet, something that could change everything. I had intended to share it later, perhaps after the candles were blown out, after the laughter softened the edges of our distance. But now I wonder if I will need it sooner, if it will become my shield when the storm finally breaks. The silence grows heavy again, pressing down on us all. I hear the faint hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen, the ticking of the clock on the wall. Every sound amplified by the tension that thickens with each passing minute. I stare at my son. He doesn't look back. His voice, sharp and cruel, still lingers in my ears. Why are you even here? I want to answer him. I want to tell him everything, the nights, the sacrifices, the roots we once shared. But I hold my tongue. Not yet. The storm hasn't broken fully, and once it does, I must be ready. So I wait. And in that waiting, in that fragile stillness before the strike, I understand something I wish I didn't. Sometimes storms don't come to test us. Sometimes they come to wash everything away. I thought I was ready for whatever might happen tonight, but I was wrong. The storm doesn't arrive all at once. It never does. It begins with the smallest ripple, the kind of detail most would ignore. But I've learned after years of silence to read the signals others miss. It starts with her eyes, my son's wife. She sits straight-backed at the table, her chin tilted just slightly higher than everyone else's. At first glance, she looks like any gracious host laughing at a cousin's remark, pouring wine into crystal glasses. But her glance keeps darting to me, sharp as needles. Each time she looks my way, her lips curl in the faintest sneer before smoothing back into a smile for the others. She's careful, always careful. But I see it. The signal is clear. I'm not welcome here, not in this house, not in this family. I've felt her coldness for years. The way she once forgot to tell me about a school play where my grandson had a leading part. The way she rolled her eyes when I gave gifts that weren't expensive, as though love could be measured in price tags. She has always considered me small, irrelevant, a relic of a past she'd rather erase. Tonight, though, her signal is bolder. She leans close to my son, whispers into his ear, her eyes never leaving mine. Whatever she says makes him stiffen his jaw, tightening as though her words are nails hammered into his skin. He doesn't speak, not yet. But the seed is planted. I try to steady myself by cutting into my food again, but the knife slips against the plate with a shrill scrape. The sound makes a few heads turn, but it's her reaction that matters. Her smile sharp and satisfied. She wanted me unsettled. I put the knife down, fold my hands in my lap, and take a breath. I remind myself of something my grandmother used to say when the dog barks. Look for the shadow that made it howl. Folk wisdom, perhaps, but tonight it feels true. She's barking, yes, but it's the shadow behind her words that worries me. The envelope beneath his glass, my late wife's handwriting, her trace in this room when she hasn't walked this earth in more than a decade. Did my son's wife place it there knowing I'd see it? Or did someone else, someone with their own design? The weight of secrets is heavy, and the first signal always points toward them. I watch as my son finally pushes his plate aside. His fingers drum against the table, slow at first, then faster. He glances at me briefly, but the look isn't one of warmth. It's a warning, a storm cloud on the horizon. The guests keep chatting, but there's a crackle in the air now, something only I can feel. Like the way the wind changes before a thunderstorm, carrying with it the smell of rain and electricity. I take a sip of water, forcing myself to remain calm, but my heart is a wild drum inside my chest. I know the first signal has already been given, her eyes, her whisper, his tightening jaw. The second won't be far behind. I let my gaze drift again to the photograph on the wall. My half-erased face stares back at me. That photo isn't just decoration. It's proof that history here is being rewritten piece by piece until there is no place left for me. A cousin clears his throat, trying to lighten the mood, so he says, smiling awkwardly, "How about a story from the old days? Birthdays past." The table chuckles politely, but my son's wife seizes the moment. "Oh, those old days don't matter anymore," she says sweetly. Her words sound harmless, but her eyes pierce into me. We live in the present now. The past belongs to the past. The signal couldn't be clearer. I sit back in my chair, the folded letter in my pocket, burning hotter with every breath. I had thought I would choose the moment to reveal it. But maybe, just maybe, the moment is choosing me. Still, I hold back. A storm has its rhythm, and rushing into it before the clouds break can be fatal. So I remain silent even as the signals gather like thunderheads. I thought the whisper in her eyes was the beginning. But I was wrong. It was only the spark. The spark doesn't take long to catch. It never does when the air is already thick with silence and old wounds. I watch my son's fingers drumming against the table, faster, harder, until even the guests nearby fall quiet, their laughter dimming as if they sense what's coming. Then it happens. His hand slams flat against the table, rattling the glasses and sending a fork clattering to the floor. The sound is sharp, a gunshot in the quiet room. Every head turns. My heart jolts not just from the noise but from the sight of him, my son, the boy I once carried through rain, now a man with anger in his veins, glaring at me as though I am the intruder here. "Leave," he says. His voice is low, but the venom in it slices deeper than any shout could. Then louder I said, "Leave my house." The words hang in the air, heavier than the silence before them. For a moment no one moves. Even his wife looks startled, though her eyes glint with something almost satisfied. A cousin coughs nervously. Another guest lowers her gaze to her plate. No one dares speak. I sit frozen, my hands gripping the edge of my chair. My son's face is red now, his chest rising and falling quickly. I've seen this face before when he was a teenager, slamming doors after arguments, shouting about rules and curfews. But this is different. Back then I was still his father, the one with authority. Tonight, I am the target of his rage. Tonight, his voice isn't testing boundaries, it's cutting them down. I feel my throat tighten, words gathering and dissolving before they can escape. Part of me wants to rise to defend myself, to remind him who I am. But another part, a quieter part, whispers that silence can be stronger than shouting. The envelope beneath his glass trembles slightly as his hand presses harder against the table. My late wife's handwriting caught beneath his anger, as though she too is trapped in this moment. I can almost hear her voice. "Be steady. Don't meet fire with fire." But his fury is relentless. "Why are you here?" he demands, louder now, his voice echoing through the room. "Why do you keep showing up when no one wants you here? This isn't your house. This isn't your life anymore. So just go." The guests shift uncomfortably, caught between loyalty and fear. I see a nephew glance at me with pity, but he quickly looks away, unwilling to take sides. His wife touches his arm, murmuring, "It's his birthday. Let it go," but her smile betrays her satisfaction. This is what she wanted all along, me gone, erased like in the photograph on the wall. My chest tightens, but not just from grief. From something else. A strange calm begins to settle over me like the eye of the storm. I hear the clock ticking in the hall, steady and unyielding, marking every second of my humiliation. Yet within that rhythm I sense clarity. I reach for my glass of water and take a slow sip. The silence stretches so taut that even this small act feels defiant. When I set the glass down, I meet his eyes. He expects anger, perhaps begging, perhaps tears. What he doesn't expect is composure. My reply doesn't come yet, not now, but I feel it building inside me, as inevitable as thunder after lightning. The guests can't bear the tension. A cousin stands, mutters something about fresh air, and slips toward the kitchen. Others avoid my gaze, choosing instead to fuss with their napkins, but all of them, every single one, are listening. I glance once more at the photograph, my half-erased face staring back, and then at the envelope pinned under his glass. The past and the present pressing in from both sides. And then I do something unexpected. I lean back in my chair and close my eyes for a moment, letting the silence wash over me. I don't leave. I don't argue. I don't shout. When I open my eyes again, he is still glaring at me, confused now, as though my refusal to rise to his command unsettles him more than if I had shouted back. I realize then that power doesn't always belong to the loudest voice in the room. I thought his shout would break me, but it only made me stronger. I thought the storm had struck its peak. But I was wrong. His voice still rings in my ears, echoing long after it leaves his mouth. "Leave my house." The words hang heavy, as if they've branded themselves into the very walls. But instead of rising, instead of obeying, I stay rooted in my chair. My silence unsettles him more than any argument could. Beneath the table, my hand drifts to my chest. I feel the folded paper pressing against my shirt pocket, a quiet weight I have carried all evening. A letter. My letter. I had written it weeks ago, my handwriting slow and deliberate, the ink blotted in a few places where my hand trembled. It was meant to be a gift, something simple yet profound. Truth I had hoped would heal the distance between us. But now, as I feel its sharp edges against my fingertips, I realize it may become something else entirely. Not a bridge, but a weapon. I press the letter flat against my chest as though drawing strength from it. The paper crinkles softly, hidden from the others, yet it feels louder than the shouts that shook the table moments ago. His wife notices my movement, her eyes narrow. Her smile falters for just a second. Does she sense what I hold? She leans toward him again, whispering something I cannot hear. He nods, but uneasily, his anger cooling into suspicion. I think back to the night I wrote the letter. It was late, the house empty except for me and the hum of the old fridge in the kitchen. I sat at the dining table staring at a blank page, unable to start. What do you write to a son who no longer sees you as family? In the end, I wrote the only things that mattered, the truth of my love for him, the sacrifices he never knew, and the revelation I had guarded for years about the inheritance his mother left behind. Inheritance he assumed never existed. I fold the letter tighter in my pocket, now reminded of another memory. Years ago, I carried something else close to my chest, his mother's final note written on the hospital bed, asking me to protect him at all costs. Her handwriting was strong even then, defiant against the illness that consumed her. She trusted me, and I promised her I would never let him feel alone. That promise burns tonight, because despite my efforts, he does feel alone, though not from abandonment, but from his own choice to push me away. Around the table, the guests shift uncomfortably, conversations starting and faltering as if no one knows how to mend the tear that his shout created. The air tastes of unease, the kind that settles into bones and lingers long after the evening ends. I keep my fingers on the letter. A thought circles in my mind. Should I pull it out now? Place it on the table between us? Let the truth burn away this charade? Or should I wait, hold it as my last defense when the storm grows fiercer? I decide to wait. Timing matters. A letter can be a gift or a blade depending on when it is opened. I glance at the envelope still pinned beneath his glass, my late wife's handwriting. The past and present collide, two letters. Two truths, both circling us like ghosts. What does his envelope say? A birthday card? A message meant for me? Or something more sinister placed here to test me? The weight of secrets presses harder. I shift in my chair, my heartbeat loud in my ears. My son avoids my eyes, but I can feel his unease. He knows I'm holding something even if he doesn't know what. The room settles into a tense quiet, the clink of cutlery, the distant hum of the clock, every sound amplified. My fingers tap the edge of the paper through my pocket, a steady rhythm that matches the ticking clock. I wonder if anyone else notices the silent duel between us. Two letters, two histories, two futures waiting to be revealed. I take a deep breath and lean back in my chair, my hand still against the pocket. I whisper in my mind the words I wrote. You are still my son. But there are truths you must hear. For now, I keep it hidden, but its presence changes me. I am no longer just the man being shouted at. I am the man holding the truth, waiting for the right moment. I thought the letter would be my offering of peace, but I realize now it may become my weapon of survival. The guests shuffle uneasily, trying to stitch the evening back together with fragments of laughter, but nothing holds. His shout has already broken the fabric of celebration. I lean back, my fingers still brushing the letter in my pocket, and that's when my eyes fall on it, an empty chair at the far end of the table. At first glance, it's nothing unusual. A forgotten seat perhaps pulled out in case of another guest. But tonight, it doesn't feel accidental. It stands apart, tucked slightly away from the others. The cushion untouched, the plate before it spotless. The sight unsettles me. Years ago, when my wife was alive, we always left one chair open at family dinners. Not because we expected someone, but because she believed in the old custom her grandmother had taught her: leave a chair for the unseen guest, for the ones you love who cannot sit with you. She said it kept the family together, that it honored the invisible bonds tying us across distance and time. I remember rolling my eyes at the superstition, though I always respected it. And after she passed, I kept the tradition alive for a while, even when it was just me and my son. I'd set the chair, pour water into a glass beside it, and sit with him as though she were still with us. He used to giggle at the idea, asking if Mom was really coming back. I told him she already was in our memory, in our stories, in our love. But tonight, in this house that no longer feels like mine, the empty chair is not an invitation. It is a warning. No one has placed food before it. No glass of water waits beside it. It stands there like a silent witness, watching the unraveling of what once was family. I can't look away. Every time I glance at my son, his angry eyes, his wife's cold satisfaction, I find myself drawn back to the chair, the absence screaming louder than their presence. One of the guests notices too. A cousin leans toward another, whispers something, while nodding toward the vacant seat. They shrug as if it doesn't matter. But it matters to me. That empty chair feels like my place, a place prepared not for me to sit, but for me to be replaced. My chest tightens. I think of my wife's words about leaving a chair for the unseen guest. If she were here now, would she see this as her chair or mine? Has my son already written me out, leaving me among the unseen, the forgotten? I push back my plate, unable to eat. My appetite is gone, stolen by that vacant space staring me down like a mirror. The silence deepens again. A child giggles somewhere in the living room, the sound bright yet jarring, a reminder of the next generation that will inherit whatever story is written tonight. Will they inherit the truth, or will they inherit a version where I never existed? The envelope beneath his glass flashes in my vision again. My late wife's handwriting, my own letter pressing against my chest, and now this empty chair. 3 objects, 3 signals. I take a slow breath. My grandmother's old saying comes back to me. An empty chair is never empty. It is filled with what you fear most. I never believed her as a boy, but tonight I do. The guests shift again, nervous. My son avoids my gaze, staring instead at the table, his jaw clenched tight. His wife notices where my eyes linger and follows my line of sight. When she sees the chair, she smirks faintly, almost as if she knows exactly what it means to me, as if she left it there on purpose. I look away, unwilling to give her the satisfaction. But inside something changes. The chair doesn't just unsettle me, it steals me. If they wish to erase me to make me invisible, then my reply must be strong enough to carve my place back into this family, whether they want it or not. I keep my hand on the letter, not yet, but soon. The storm is circling closer. I thought the empty chair was just a forgotten seat, but I was wrong. It was the loudest voice in the room. The empty chair lingers in my mind, but another memory rises up uninvited like a ghost I tried to bury. It was only a week ago on an ordinary afternoon when I ran into Mrs. Holloway, the neighbor who has lived 2 doors down from my son for nearly 20 years. I had been walking up the street clutching the small wrap box I'd bought as a birthday gift. She stood by her rose bushes, trimming them carefully with the same worn shears she's used since I can remember. When she saw me, her face shifted, not the polite smile of a neighbor, but something heavier. "Going to the party?" she asked, her voice low. "Yes," I said, trying to sound cheerful. "It's his 35th, a big one." She hesitated, her hand stilling on the shears. Then she leaned closer, her perfume faint but unmistakable lilac, the same scent she's always worn. "Be careful in there," she whispered. "Not everything is as it seems." I laughed nervously, brushing it off. Mrs. Holloway was known for her cryptic comments, the kind that sounded more like warnings than pleasantries. But her eyes didn't waver, sharp and certain, as she whispered again. "Be careful. Watch the faces, not the words." At the time, I dismissed it. She was just being dramatic, I told myself. But now as I sit at this table with the empty chair staring back at me with my son's fury still burning in my ears, her words echo louder than ever. Watch the faces, not the words. I glance around the table. Faces tell more than mouths ever confess. My son's flushed red jaw, locked eyes hardened. His wife's smug, satisfied, though she tries to mask it with a polite smile. The cousins restless, shifting their gazes, flickering between pity and discomfort. Even the children who peek from the living room doorway sense something amiss, their eyes wide with unspoken questions. And then I notice something else, the envelope beneath his glass. My late wife's handwriting, bold and unyielding, staring at me like a message from the grave. His hand rests protectively over it now as though guarding it from me, but his fingers twitch restless, betraying his nerves. Faces, not words. I realize my son's anger isn't spontaneous. It's rehearsed, fueled. Someone has been whispering into his ear long before tonight, the same someone whose eyes pierce me from across the table, whose smirk grows every time my son looks at me with hatred. His wife leans in again, her lips brushing his ear. He nods slowly, his hand tightening on the glass. She doesn't have to shout. Her whispers are enough to turn my son against me. Mrs. Holloway's voice hisses in my memory. "Be careful in there." I grip the edge of my chair, my knuckles pale. She had seen something. Perhaps overheard conversations, glimpsed tensions I refuse to acknowledge. She's lived close enough to witness the cracks forming, the arguments spilling out through open windows on summer nights. Maybe she saw the storm long before I dared admit it. I take another sip of water, my throat dry. My son notices, his eyes narrowing. He expects me to speak, to defend myself, to rise and walk away. But I stay still, replaying Mrs. Holloway's warning in my head. The air grows heavier, suffocating. My heart pounds, but I force myself to stay calm. For the first time tonight, I don't feel powerless. I feel prepared. Not because I know what's coming, but because I know the signals are real. The empty chair, the cropped photograph, the envelope, and now the whisper from a neighbor who saw more than I did. I shift slightly, feeling the letter in my pocket again. Its edges dig into my chest, a silent reminder of the truth I still hold. My reply is not ready yet, but when it comes, it will be stronger than their whispers, stronger than their erasures. I glance at the clock on the wall, each tick louder than the last. The storm is circling closer. And I know now that Mrs. Holloway was right. Not everything is as it seems, and I thought I had prepared myself for betrayal. But I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. The room feels like a sealed chamber now, the air dense with tension, every breath drawn cautiously as though sound itself could ignite the storm. My son's command still lingers in the air, sharp as broken glass. Leave my house. I don't move. My silence unnerves him, but it doesn't cool his temper. If anything, it fans the flames. His wife tilts her head slightly, watching me with the satisfaction of someone who thinks she's already won. She leans close, her whisper brushing his ear, and I see his face harden further. Whatever she says, it's poison. Then, with a sudden motion, my son slams his fist on the table. Plates jump. A spoon falls to the floor and the cake knife rattles against the serving tray. The laughter and small talk that had been hesitantly stitched back together evaporates in an instant. That's enough. He snaps, his voice louder now, chest heaving with every word. I won't have him sitting here pretending he belongs. This is my house, my family. The words strike deeper than the shout itself. Not just the rejection, but the deliberate severing of ties, his family, not mine. A murmur ripples through the guests, low and uneasy. A cousin clears his throat as if to intervene, but the weight of my son's anger pins everyone in place. They glance at me, then at him, but no one dares step into the storm. I hold my fork loosely, my knuckles white. My heart pounds, but my voice stays locked inside. I want to speak, to remind him of nights when I carried him through fever of the years I worked 2 jobs, so he'd never go hungry, of the sacrifices carved into my very bones. But the words choke in my throat. He wouldn't hear them. Not now. Not like this. Instead, I notice the envelope beneath his glass. It trembles with every angry gesture sliding slightly across the tablecloth. My late wife's handwriting glints in the candlelight, her presence ghosting over the chaos. That envelope is no ordinary card. It's a fuse waiting for the right spark. His wife places her hand on his arm, her manicured nails resting like claws. "Darling," she says sweetly, but the edge in her tone is unmistakable. There's no need to waste more breath. Some people never know when they've overstayed their welcome. Her words drip with venom, and though they're directed at me, she says them loudly enough for the entire table to hear. A few guests shift uncomfortably. Others stare at their plates. The silence is suffocating. I take a breath, steadying myself. I remember something my father once told me, a lesson from his own hard years. When a man shouts, he shows his weakness. When he stays silent, he shows his strength. But strength, I realize, can't stay hidden forever. Sometimes silence becomes its own weapon. My son pushes back his chair abruptly, the legs screeching against the wooden floor. He stands now, towering over me, his shadow falling across the table. His face is flushed, his hands clenched at his sides. "Get out," he growls, his voice shaking. "I won't say it again." But I can see in his eyes that he will say it again and again, until the words lose all meaning, until there's nothing left between us but hate. A glass tips over, and the commotion, red wine spilling across the tablecloth, spreading like blood. Gasps ripple through the room, but no one moves to clean it. Everyone is transfixed, waiting. My son points toward the door, his hand trembling with fury. For a moment, I think he might actually grab me, drag me out himself. His wife's smile widens slightly, as though that's exactly what she wants. But then something inside me shifts. The silence I've been clinging to begins to fracture. I feel the letter in my pocket pressing against my chest, reminding me of the truth I still hold. I don't rise. I don't shout. But I straighten in my chair, my eyes locking onto his. The room holds its breath. Even the clock on the wall seems to pause between ticks. I know my reply is coming soon. I can feel it building in my chest, steady and unstoppable. But not yet. Not until the storm rages its fullest. For now, I let the escalation play out, knowing that when my words finally arrive, they will fall like thunder. I thought this was the storm's peak, but I was wrong. The spilled wine stains the white cloth, a deep crimson bloom that spreads wider with each second. Guests fumble for napkins, but no one dares interrupt the confrontation. My son is still standing, his chest heaving, his finger pointing toward the door, as though he's trying to drive me out with sheer willpower. I don't move. Instead, my mind drifts not away from the moment, but deeper into it. Because as I sit here feeling the letter press against my chest, another object comes to mind. An object hidden far from this table, but one that could change everything. The missing key. Years ago, when his mother and I bought our first home, we had two identical brass keys made. I carried one on a ring that never left my pocket. She carried the other in her purse. But after her passing, I tucked her key away inside a small wooden box. The same box where I kept our wedding rings, her letters, and the last photo of us together. That second key was never mentioned again, not to him, not to anyone. But tonight, as he shouts that this is his house, his family, his life, I can't help but think of that key. Not because it opens this house, the one filled with cold glances and erased photographs, but because it opens another door entirely. A door he doesn't know exists. I remember the day I locked it last. The hinges creaked, the sunlight spilled across the empty rooms, and I told myself I would wait. Wait until the time was right, until he was ready, until he needed to know that what he believed, that he came from nothing, that I had nothing, was not the truth. And now, as I watch him stand there, veins pulsing at his temples, I realize the missing key may be the very reply he never expected. My son's voice trembles as he shouts again. "I said get out!" He pounds his fist once more against the table, the plates rattling like bones. His wife squeezes his arm, her nails digging into his skin, steadying him, feeding his fury. But I don't answer. I let my thoughts linger on that brass key, small and unremarkable to anyone else, yet heavier than gold to me. Its grooves fit perfectly into a lock he doesn't even know he has a claim to. A guest coughs nervously. Another pushes their chair back slightly as though preparing to leave. The party has turned into a trial, and everyone here is an unwilling witness. I steady my hands on the table. My fingers itch to reach for the letter in my pocket, but I resist. Timing matters. First, he must believe he has stripped me of everything. Only then will the truth strike hardest. My eyes drift back to the envelope beneath his glass, my late wife's handwriting. Was that her way of leaving behind her own key, a message she intended him to read tonight? Or is it something else entirely placed here by another hand? Questions swarm. But one thing remains clear. The key I kept hidden all these years is more than a piece of metal. It is my reply forged long before this dinner, waiting for this very storm. I lean forward slightly, my voice calm, steady, almost too soft for the silence in the room. "You think I have nothing," I murmur, my eyes fixed on his. "But you don't know what I've held on to." His brow furrows, confusion flickering across his face. He wasn't expecting words, not calm ones, not cryptic ones. His wife leans closer, whispering again, urging him not to falter. But he can't mask it entirely. For the first time tonight, he looks uncertain. The guests exchange glances. They sense a shift. The storm is not one-sided anymore. I sit back, my heartbeat steady now. I don't need to pull out the letter yet. I don't need to produce the key. Just the mention of something hidden, something unspoken, is enough to fracture the foundation of his anger. The missing key may not be in my pocket tonight, but it is in my possession, and in time it will unlock more than doors. It will unlock the truth he has spent years trying to bury beneath his rage. I thought the missing key was just an object, but I realize now it is the reply he never expected. The room quivers under the weight of his anger. He stands over me, trembling with fury, demanding again that I leave his house. His wife's eyes gleam like polished steel, her smirk hidden behind a glass of wine. Around us, guests sit frozen, caught between shame and curiosity, unwilling to intervene. But me, I do not rise. I do not answer his shout with my own. Instead, I let silence settle into me like a cloak. My reply is not in words, not yet. My reply is in my stillness. I lower my gaze deliberately to the table, as though I am more interested in the pattern of the spilled wine than in his command. I lift my fork with steady hands, cutting into the uneaten piece of chicken on my plate. The scrape of the metal against porcelain echoes louder than any insult. Slowly, deliberately, I raise the bite to my mouth and chew. The room gasps softly, not at what I said, but at what I didn't. My son falters. His chest still heaves, but his words stall in his throat. He wasn't expecting this. He expected rage, or begging, or for me to shuffle toward the door with bowed head. He expected me to break, but instead I eat, calmly, as though I belong here, as though this is still my table, my family, my life. The silence thickens. I remember something my late wife used to tell me. Sometimes silence is not weakness. Sometimes it is a mirror, and it forces others to see what they are. Tonight I hold that mirror up to my son, and he does not like what he sees. He slams his hand down again. "Don't ignore me," he shouts, voice cracking. "I told you to leave." I keep chewing, slowly, calmly. My eyes never leave my plate. I swallow, take a sip of water, and then wipe my mouth with the napkin. Not a word, not a gesture of surrender. The power shifts, small but enough that the guests feel it. A cousin coughs, hiding a nervous laugh. Another glances between us, eyes wide, sensing the storm twisting in a new direction. His wife grips his arm tighter, nails digging into his sleeve, her whisper urgent. Don't let him get to you. But it's too late. He already feels it. My silence is louder than his shouting. I glance toward the photograph on the wall, the one where half my face has been cut away. For a moment I see myself reflected in the glass of the frame. Half erased there, but whole here, sitting quietly, refusing to vanish. Then my hand brushes the letter in my pocket again. Its presence steadies me. My words are waiting, patient, sharp, but not yet. First, he must feel the full weight of silence. The tension stretches until it hums. The ticking of the clock becomes unbearable, each second a hammer against the quiet. My son's face reddens, his breath ragged. Finally, he pushes his chair back violently, the sound screeching against the floorboards. He towers above me, trembling with a fury he can no longer control. And still I do not speak. It unsettles him more than any reply could. I see doubt flicker across his eyes just for a second. He doesn't understand why I'm calm. He doesn't understand what I hold. He doesn't understand that silence can be sharper than a blade. Guests begin whispering among themselves now, the unease spilling from them in hushed tones. One mutters that maybe I should leave, another says it isn't right, not tonight, not at his birthday. But still I stay. And still I remain silent. I let the quiet grow until it fills every corner of the room, until it presses against his chest, until he feels what I have felt for years, the crushing weight of absence, of being unheard, unseen. Finally, I raise my eyes and meet his, calm, unflinching. My reply is not a word but a gaze that says, you cannot erase me, you cannot shout me into nothing, I am still here. He recoils slightly, blinking, his anger momentarily blunted by something he doesn't recognize, my refusal to yield. The silence, once my prison, has become my shield. And I realize in that moment my reply has already begun. I thought silence meant surrender, but I was wrong. It is the beginning of my strength. The silence is broken not by me, not by him, but by a shrill vibration rattling against the wood of the table. A phone, my phone. I glance down and see it glowing faintly in my pocket, the vibration steady, insistent. My son scowls, annoyed at the intrusion, but I reach for it anyway. My hands, though, calm a moment ago, tremble slightly as I slide it out. On the screen, a number I don't recognize. No name, just digits. Ordinary, forgettable. Yet something about it grips me. The timing is too precise. The call slices into the storm like lightning. The guests murmur. One cousin chuckles nervously, whispering that it must be a telemarketer. But I know better. I feel it. My thumb hovers over the screen before I finally accept the call and press it to my ear. At first, there's only static, a faint hiss like wind pressing against a window. Then a voice, low, urgent, familiar in a way that chills me. Don't leave, the voice whispers. Not yet. I freeze. My son watches me with suspicion, his arms crossed, his anger momentarily subdued by curiosity. His wife leans closer to him, whispering, her eyes narrowing. Who is it? My son demands. I don't answer. I can't. My throat tightens as the voice continues, faint but clear. There are things he doesn't know. Stay. Then the line goes dead. The phone slips slightly in my hand, my palm damp with sweat. I set it down on the table, the glow fading from the screen. No one else heard the words, but the silence in the room grows heavier, as if they did. Who called? He asks again, louder this time. I meet his gaze, my face unreadable. Wrong number, I say calmly, though my heart pounds. But inside, I know it wasn't wrong. The voice, it carried a trace I can't deny. The cadence, the sharp edge of certain words, it reminded me of someone I once trusted. Someone who knew too much about my family. A lawyer, an old friend. Or worse, a betrayal closer than I imagine. The guests stir uneasily. They sense something has shifted, though they don't understand what. My son slams his hand down again, but this time his anger feels forced, defensive. Don't play games with me, he growls. If you think someone's going to save you, you're wrong. But he doesn't know. He doesn't know about the letter pressing against my chest. He doesn't know about the key I still keep hidden. And he doesn't know about the strange call that told me exactly what I needed to hear. Don't leave, not yet. I sit back in my chair, calmer than before. My son mistakes my silence for defiance, but the truth is deeper. That call, whether it came from friend or foe, is proof that the story is not yet finished. Someone else knows. Someone else is watching. I glance at the empty chair again, at the cropped photograph, at the trembling envelope beneath his glass. Symbols, signals, warnings, and now a voice to tie them together. For a fleeting moment, I wonder if the voice was even real. Perhaps it was my mind too, strained, too haunted by the night. But no, I felt the vibration, I heard the hiss, I caught the words. Real or not, the effect is the same. I lift my glass of water once more, sip slowly, and let the calm return to me. My reply doesn't need to come yet. The storm is still gathering. But when it does, when the words finally leave my lips, I know now that they will fall not only with my strength, but with the weight of unseen hands guiding me. The room buzzes faintly with nervous whispers. My son's wife shakes her head, muttering under her breath. He glares at me, frustrated by the power I've reclaimed simply by refusing to leave. And inside I whisper to myself, I thought I was standing here alone. But I was wrong. The phone lies silent now, the screen black, but its echo lingers in me. Don't leave, not yet. I set it down slowly, deliberately, as though it were another piece in a game only I and some unseen player know the rules to. My son stares at me, his glare sharp enough to cut. His wife whispers again, her hand on his arm, steadying him like reins on a horse. He looks ready to erupt once more, but then the envelope beneath his glass shifts, slightly pushed by his restless movements. The motion draws every fragment of my attention. My late wife's handwriting stares back at me, bold, looping letters, a trace of her that time could never erase. And for the first time all evening, I see recognition dawn on a few faces around the table. A cousin squints, murmuring, "Is that her writing?" Another nods faintly, lips parting in surprise. The question ripples outward, though unspoken by most. Why is her handwriting here on this night under his glass? My son notices their stares. His face stiffens, his jaw locking. He tries to brush it off, but the silence betrays him. He grips the envelope as if afraid I'll reach across the table and snatch it. Finally, one of the older guests breaks the tension. "What's in it?" she asks gently. His wife is quick to answer, her voice sweet but cold. "Just a card. Nothing important." But it's too late. The reveal has already begun. The way my son clutches it, the way his eyes flicker, guilty, uncertain, tells everyone at the table that it is not just a card. The air sharpens, alive with curiosity. Even the children peeking from the hallway lean in, sensing the shift. I clear my throat, my voice calm but firm. "Her handwriting," I say, softly nodding toward the envelope. "I'd know it anywhere." The room stirs. His grip tightens. His wife stiffens. For the first time tonight, I see cracks in his anger. He doesn't shout. He doesn't command. Instead, he looks down at the glass, at the envelope beneath it, as though the weight of his mother's words burns through the paper. I lean forward slightly. "She left something, didn't she?" The words fall into the silence like stones into a still pond. Ripples spread instantly. The cousins exchange quick, nervous glances. His wife forces a laugh, brittle and false. Old letters don't matter. They're sentimental scraps, nothing more. But no one believes her. My son swallows hard, his Adam's apple bobbing. For the first time tonight, his fury falters. The storm in his voice weakens, replaced by something quieter, something more dangerous. "She left it for me," he mutters at last, barely above a whisper. The guests shift, leaning closer, straining to catch his words. His wife shoots him a sharp look, her nails digging deeper into his arm. But the admission has slipped out, and it cannot be taken back. I feel the letter in my pocket pressing against my chest, my own truth burning to be revealed. But not yet. Not while his envelope still trembles on the table, a secret only half exposed. I glance at the empty chair again, at the cropped photograph, at the spilled wine, spreading like blood across the tablecloth. All of it points to this moment, the unraveling of something hidden. "She left something," I repeat quietly, steadying my voice. "And you're afraid to show it." The guests murmur again, louder now. His wife tries to shush them, but the tide is turning. The silence that once suffocated me is now suffocating him. He squirms under their stares, his eyes darting to the envelope as if it might betray him at any moment. The first reveal is here. Not the whole truth, not yet, but enough. Enough to show that there is more beneath the surface than anger and shouts. Enough to prove that his rage isn't born of strength, but of fear. I sit back, calm, my eyes locked on him. He clutches the envelope tighter, but I can see it in his face. He knows the secret won't stay hidden forever. I thought his anger was the weapon. But now I see it's the shield. And shields always crack. The murmur around the table grows louder, like the low rumble before thunder. Guests whisper behind their hands, their eyes flicking between my son's clenched jaw and the trembling envelope still trapped beneath his glass. He grips it as though the weight of his entire world rests in those folded papers. Finally, I lean forward, my palms flat on the table. My voice is steady, calm, but edged with something sharper. You shouted at me to leave, I say, eyes locked on his, but you haven't told them why. A hush falls instantly. Every fork stills, every breath holds. My son stiffens, his face flushed, but it's not just anger anymore. It's fear. His wife is the first to react. "Don't listen to him," she says, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. "He's trying to spoil the evening. It's your birthday, darling. Don't let him ruin it." But her hand tightens on his arm, her nails pressing crescents into his skin. She knows. She knows I've cracked something open and she's desperate to shut it again. I sit back, my gaze never wavering. "Your mother's handwriting?" I say softly, nodding toward the envelope. "That's not a card. That's her voice, her words, her truth. And if you're holding them now, it means you've been keeping them from me." His face twists. "She left it for me," he snaps louder this time. "And what did it say?" I ask, my tone low, deliberate. That I was worthless? That I didn't matter? Or did it tell you something you didn't want the rest of us to hear? The air crackles. The guests lean forward, caught between horror and fascination. His wife hisses, "Stop this," under her breath, but her voice trembles. For a moment, my son looks as if he might explode. His hand slams the table again, rattling the glasses, but he doesn't shout this time. Instead, he spits the words through clenched teeth. "It said I had to protect what was mine. That's what she wanted. For me to carry on, not you." I breathe slowly, the words sinking in like knives. Protect what was his. Twisted, half true, half lie. My wife would never have written those words without reason. I reach for my pocket, feeling the outline of my own letter. Its edges bite against my chest, a reminder that I hold a truth too, one that will cut deeper than his. "You've been protecting a lie," I say softly. The room freezes. His eyes flash with panic. He wasn't prepared for that. I lean closer, my voice carrying through the silence. "You tell them you're the one she trusted. You tell them I'm the intruder here. But you've built that story on a single piece of paper you've twisted into what you wanted to hear." He shakes his head violently. "No." "Yes," I interrupt, my voice sharper now. "You've shouted at me, erased me from your photographs, tried to silence me with anger. But the truth doesn't vanish because you scream louder than it." The guests murmur again, louder now. A cousin whispers, "What does he mean?" Another leans toward me, eyes wide. "What truth?" I let the silence stretch heavy and deliberate before I answer. "The truth," I say, turning back to my son, "is that your mother left more than one letter. And you've hidden yours because you know what mine will reveal." Gasps ripple through the table. His wife's face drains of color, her hand slipping slightly from his arm. He stares at me, stunned, his lips parting, but no words coming. For the first time tonight, he doesn't look like the man in control. He looks like the boy I once knew, lost, frightened, uncertain. But the confrontation isn't over. Not yet. I lean back, folding my hands calmly in my lap, though my heart hammers in my chest. "You want me gone," I say softly. "But before I leave, everyone here deserves to know what she truly wanted, what she truly left behind." The silence is deafening. My son swallows hard, his face pale now. His wife looks around desperately, as if searching for an escape. The guests wait breathless, caught in the storm. The confrontation has begun. The truths have started to bleed into the open, and there is no turning back. I thought his anger was my greatest enemy. But I see now, it is his fear of the truth. The silence is unbearable now. It clings to the walls, heavier than smoke, thicker than wine spilled across the tablecloth. Everyone waits for my son to speak, for me to unfold the truth, for the envelope to be opened. The confrontation hangs in the air like a drawn blade, trembling just before the strike. And then from a voice no one expected, the blade drops. His wife. She leans forward suddenly, her hand snapping away from his arm, her voice sharp and cutting. "Fine," she blurts out, her tone shrill. "Yes, there was more than one letter, but he didn't tell you because she never trusted you with it." The words crack through the room like thunder. Gasps echo around the table, some sharp, some hushed, all stunned. My son's head jerks toward her, eyes, wide face pale. "What are you doing?" he hisses, his voice trembling. But it's too late. Her words cannot be pulled back. I stare at her, my heart pounding, though I keep my face composed. "So you admit it," I say quietly. Her chest rises and falls quickly, her mask of calm slipping. She gave him a letter, she insists, pointing at my son. A letter meant only for him. Not you, not anyone else. She told him to take care of everything. She didn't want you meddling anymore. Gasps ripple again. The cousins shift, whispering to one another. The weight of her confession settles like dust, choking, impossible to ignore. My son grips the envelope tighter, his knuckles white. "Stop," he mutters, his voice low, panicked. "You don't know what you're saying." But I see it, the fracture widening between them. Her words weren't part of his plan. She spoke too quickly, too harshly, and in doing so revealed more than he ever wanted revealed. I leaned forward, my voice steady, deliberate. So she did leave more than one letter. You've hidden yours all this time, twisting her words, using them as a weapon against me. No, he snaps, but his denial is weak, feeble. His wife presses on as though the storm has swept her past the point of control. She knew you'd ruin everything if you stayed involved. She spits, her eyes gleaming with triumph. She told him to take charge. And that's exactly what we've done. This house, this family, this life, it's ours now. Her words hang there venomous, exposing the truth more brutally than I could have managed. Not a gentle reveal, not a careful confession, but a slip born of arrogance, of believing she's already won. The guests recoil, their murmurs rising into sharp whispers. One older aunt shakes her head, muttering, she would never say that. Another cousin frowns, staring at my son with disappointment. The tide is shifting, not against me, but against them. My son's face crumbles, fury and fear colliding in his eyes. He grabs his wife's wrist, hissing, enough. But the damage is done. She has spoken too much, and the room has heard. I sit back, my hand resting over the letter in my pocket. My pulse is steady now, my silence no longer weakness but preparation. The truth is bleeding into the open, and all I need to do is wait for the final cut. I look at my son, my voice quiet, filled with a weight he cannot ignore. She trusted both of us, but you decided to silence her, to silence me. And now everyone here knows. The room is so quiet I can hear the clock ticking again, steady and unrelenting. My son trembles, his mouth opening and closing, but no words come. His wife glares at me, her mask slipping entirely, rage flashing in her eyes. And in that silence, in that moment of collapse, I realize something important. The storm is no longer mine to weather alone. They are drowning in it now. Their lies, their arrogance, their whispered poison, all of it is unraveling before the very people they wanted to impress. I thought the letter in my pocket would be the first revelation, but I was wrong. Her voice, uncontrolled, reckless, has already torn open the storm. And the second shock is only the beginning. The air is thick, heavier than before, every guest sitting in stunned silence after her outburst. My son's wife clutches her wine glass with white knuckles, her chest rising and falling sharply as if she wishes she could swallow back the words she's already spilled. My son looks shattered, caught between fury at me, panic at her, and fear of what everyone now knows. It is in that vacuum of chaos that I finally move. Slowly, deliberately, I reach down to the leather satchel I brought with me. It rests by the leg of my chair, unnoticed until now. The guests murmur as I pull it up and place it on the table with a dull thud. My son's face drains of color. He knows the sound. He knows the weight. From inside, I draw out a small wooden box, old, weathered, its surface scarred by decades of hands, but polished enough to still catch the light. Its brass clasp glints faintly, worn smooth by time. For years, it has been my secret vault, the place where I kept the fragments of my past. I couldn't bear to lose my wife's letters, her favorite brooch, and most importantly, the second brass key. Gasps ripple across the table as I place the box before me. My hand rests on it gently, almost reverently. This, I say softly, my voice carrying through the stillness, is what I've kept hidden. Not from her, not from the truth, but from those who would twist it. My son shifts uncomfortably. "What are you doing?" His voice cracks, a far cry from the thunder that shook the room earlier. I don't answer immediately. Instead, I run my fingers along the lid, feeling every groove, every scar. I remember the night I placed it away for safekeeping after her funeral. My son was too young, too angry, too lost in grief. I promised myself I would show him one day when he was ready. But he never was. Or perhaps he never wanted to be. Now the box sits between us, the silent judge at the center of the table. I wasn't planning to open this tonight. I admit, my eyes meeting the guests', then his. But since truths are spilling whether we want them to or not, perhaps it's time. A cousin leans forward, eyes wide. An aunt clasps her hands together, whispering a prayer under her breath. Even the children in the hallway creep closer, sensing the weight of the moment. My son's wife slams her glass down, wine sloshing onto the cloth. "Don't listen to him," she snaps. "He's just trying to manipulate you. That box is nothing but trinkets, junk from the past." Her voice is shrill, desperate, too desperate. I open the clasp slowly. The click echoes like a gunshot. I don't lift the lid yet. Instead, I let the sound settle into the silence. Let it remind everyone that inside lies something worth protecting. My son stares at the box, his eyes dark, his jaw clenched. "Don't," he mutters. His voice is low, but it carries the weight of a plea more than a command. I finally lift the lid. The hinges creak, protesting, as though they too know the gravity of what they're releasing. Inside, nestled carefully among folded letters and small mementos, lies the brass key. Its metal is dulled by time, but it shines enough to catch every eye at the table. A collective gasp rises sharp and unified. I lift it gently, holding it up for all to see. This, I say, my voice steady, is the key to what she left behind, to what we built together, and to what has been hidden from you all. The room erupts in whispers. Cousins lean across the table, craning to see. An aunt murmurs, "I knew she wouldn't leave nothing." Another gasps, "There's more. There's something else." My son grips the edge of the table, his knuckles white, his eyes burning into me. "You should have given that to me," he hisses. "No," I reply calmly, the key glinting in my hand. "I should have given it to the man my wife trusted, the man who could honor her memory, not twist it. And I see now that man may never be you." His wife shoots to her feet, her chair screeching back. "Enough," she screams. "He doesn't need your scraps. We have this house, this family, everything we need." But her words only make the guests murmur louder. Doubt spreads across their faces. They've seen too much now: the envelope, the confession, the box, the key. I place the key gently back into the box, resting my hand over it. "You shouted at me to leave," I say softly. "But maybe it's time for the truth to stay, and for lies to go." The silence after is heavy, trembling with the weight of what's to come. I thought the box only carried memories, but I realize now it carries the storm itself. The old box sits open on the table, the brass key catching the light, and the room buzzes with restless whispers. The guests lean closer, their eyes darting between the key and my son's ashen face. His wife hovers, fists clenched at her sides, ready to scream again, but I hold up a hand before she can. "Memories alone are not enough," I say, my voice firm, steady, "so I brought something more." From beneath the stack of letters inside the box, I pull out a brown envelope, thicker, heavier than the rest. Its edges are worn, its flap sealed with a faint red stamp from the law office I visited only weeks after my wife's funeral. The air shifts instantly. Everyone recognizes the kind of envelope it is: legal, official, undeniable. My son's eyes widen, his chest rising sharply as if he's been struck. "No," he mutters under his breath. I place the envelope flat on the table. "This is the file prepared by her lawyer. The one she entrusted me with before she died. The one you've pretended never existed." Gasps ripple through the room. An aunt claps a hand over her mouth. A cousin mutters, "I knew it. I knew she left something." The children in the hallway push closer, their wide eyes glowing with curiosity. His wife recovers quickly, stepping forward, her voice sharp and commanding. "Don't touch it," she hisses. "It's nothing, just more of his tricks. He's desperate. Can't you see?" But no one looks at her. All eyes are locked on me and the file. I run my hand over the seal, feeling the embossed mark of the law firm beneath my fingers. I remember the day I received it. I sat in a cold office, the lawyer's voice low and precise as he explained her wishes. He told me not to rush, not to reveal it, until the time was right. I didn't understand then, but I do now. Tonight is the time. I break the seal. The sound is sharp, final, echoing in the tense room. Slowly, I draw out the papers, a thick stack of legal documents, signatures scrawled in firm ink, her name written across every page. The guests lean forward. My son grips the edge of the table so hard I fear it will splinter. His wife shakes her head, backing away a step, as though the documents themselves carry a weight too heavy for her to bear. "These," I say, my voice resonant, "are her last directives. Property deeds, bank statements, testamentary letters, proof of everything she built, everything she protected for him, yes, but also for me, for us, for the family." I hold up a page, the heading clear: "Property Title Transfer of Ownership." Gasps ripple again. The cousins crane their necks to see. A murmur runs down the table. There's another house. I flip to another page, the bold letters unmistakable: "Joint account, beneficiary rights." And finally, I lay down the last sheet, the will itself. Her signature beneath the words, "To my husband and to my son, I entrust our legacy together." My son's face crumples, his lips parting, but no words coming. His wife lunges forward, snatching at the paper, but I slap my hand down on it before she can. My eyes blaze into hers. "Enough," I say. The word is sharp, final. She freezes her hand, trembling under mine. The room is silent again, but it is no longer a silence of fear. It is one of revelation. I look at my son, my voice soft but unyielding. "She didn't leave you alone. She didn't erase me. She trusted us both. and you've hidden that truth because you wanted it all for yourself. The cousins nod their faces stern now. The aunts whisper prayers. Even the children sense the gravity, whispering to each other with wide-awed eyes. My son shakes his head slowly, tears threatening but never falling. I thought, he stammers. You thought you could silence me with anger, I say. But truth doesn't stay buried. It finds its way out one way or another. The lawyer's file lies between us, undeniable, unshakable. The documents gleam under the dim light, each one a blade cutting through the lies he and his wife spun for years. I thought the key was my strongest weapon. But I realize now it is the lawyer's file that will undo them completely. The documents lie spread across the table like shattered glass, each page reflecting fragments of a truth my son has tried so desperately to bury. Property deeds, account statements, the will itself, her name etched firmly at the bottom, impossible to erase. The guests lean closer, their eyes darting across the ink, their whispers rising like the hum of bees. My son stares at the papers as if they are fire. His hands trembling at his sides, his chest heaves, his lips parting without sound. The anger that had once roared inside him is gone, drained, leaving only fear and disbelief. This, he mutters, shaking his head. This isn't. His voice trails off, swallowed by the silence pressing in around him. His wife reaches for his arm, her grip tight, but for the first time he doesn't respond to her touch. His eyes remain locked on the will, his face pale beads of sweat forming at his temple. The cousins murmur louder. She left it for both of them. All these years. He lied. How could he hide this? Their voices strike harder than my words ever could. Each whisper is a stone laid at his feet, weighing him down. He collapses back into his chair, the legs screeching against the floor. His body sags, shoulders hunched, as though the weight of the truth has crushed something inside him. He presses his palms against his face, breathing ragged, trying to hold himself together. But it is too late. The collapse has begun. I sit still watching him. My hand rests on the open box, the brass key glinting faintly beside the stack of documents. My silence now is not defiance, but authority. The power has shifted completely. He lowers his hands, his eyes red, though no tears fall. He looks at me, really looks at me for the first time tonight. His voice cracks broken. Why? Why didn't you tell me sooner? The question stings. My throat tightens. I remember the years I waited, hoping he would be ready, hoping grief would soften instead of harden him. Because I wanted you to come to me, I say quietly, not to shout, not to accuse, but to ask, to listen. His lips tremble, his hands shaking as he picks up one of the pages. His eyes scan the words, though I know he has read them before in secret. But now in front of witnesses, the truth sears into him differently. The strength he built on lies crumbles. His wife cannot bear the silence. She slams her hand on the table, her voice sharp, desperate. None of this changes anything. This house is ours. We built this life. You can't take it back. But her words fall flat. The guests do not nod with her. They recoil. Her desperation is too loud, too telling. The tide has turned against her as well. One aunt, her voice trembling but firm, finally speaks. Your mother trusted both of them. That was her wish. You have betrayed her, not him. My son flinches as though struck. His wife glares at the aunt, but her anger no longer commands the room. She is alone in her fury now. I lean forward, my voice steady, calm as stone. You wanted me gone, I say. But you see, now I am not the one who doesn't belong. Lies don't belong. Betrayal doesn't belong. And if you truly loved her, if you truly honored her memory, you would never have tried to erase me. My son lowers his gaze, shame etched deep in every line of his face. His hands fall limp to his lap. His wife hisses something into his ear, but he shakes his head faintly. The collapse is complete. He can no longer hold up the mask he wore so fiercely. The room exhales at once, the guests murmuring again, but softer this time. The storm has shifted its fury, breaking not over me, but over him. I glance at the clock on the wall. The ticking resumes its rhythm, steady, unbroken, as though even time has accepted what has just happened. I thought his shouts were the breaking point, but I realize now it is his silence, his collapse, that has changed everything. The room has shifted. I can feel it in the way the guests sit. Now, straighter, their eyes clearer, their whispers more deliberate. The documents remain spread across the table, stark and undeniable, the weight of ink and signatures heavier than any word spoken tonight. My son sits slumped, hollowed out by truth, while his wife's fury burns hotter, her voice rising but falling on deaf ears. And then it happens, the first voice that does not come from me, but from them. My cousin Margaret, who has sat quietly at the far end of the table all evening, leans forward, her voice trembling but firm. She would never have wanted this, she says, looking straight at my son. Your mother was generous. She believed in family, not in hiding, not in erasing. A murmur of agreement follows. Another relative, my late wife's sister, speaks next, her eyes glistening with tears. I was there the night she wrote those letters. She told me herself. He'll need his father even when he thinks he doesn't. Her gaze hardens. And you, boy, you've done everything she feared. My son's face twists, shame and anger colliding. Stop, he begins, but his voice cracks. No, his aunt cuts in sharply, louder than she's spoken all night. We won't stop. We've stayed silent for too long, watching you shut him out, belittle him, erase him. But tonight, we've seen the truth. And it isn't him who's betrayed this family. It's you. Gasps ripple, heads nod. The tide once so firmly in his favor has turned. His wife slams her hands on the table, her composure shattering. You're all blind, she screams. He is the head of this family now. This is our house, our life. Why can't you see he's the only one who deserves it? But her words fall into a silence that grows colder with every second. Not one guest supports her. Not one voice rises to agree. Even the children, wide-eyed in the hallway, shrink back at her outburst. I sit quietly, letting it unfold. This is not my victory to claim it is theirs. It is the family reclaiming what was stolen from them through lies and arrogance. My son buries his face in his hands. His shoulders shake, though whether from rage or grief I cannot tell. For the first time tonight, his wife cannot pull him back. She clutches at him, hissing in his ear, but he shrugs her off with a weak motion, his strength crumbling under the weight of so many eyes. Margaret speaks again, her voice softer now. We all lost her. We all grieved. But he... She nods toward me. He carried the heaviest burden, and instead of standing with him, you turned your grief into anger, and anger into lies. Look around you. Look at what you've done. My son lifts his head slowly, his face pale, his eyes wet. He glances around the table and sees it, the disappointment, the disapproval, the pity. No longer allies, no longer silent bystanders. He has lost them. And in losing them, he begins to lose himself. I lean forward, my voice low but steady. This doesn't have to end in ruins, I say. You can still honor her. You can still rebuild. But it starts by telling the truth. The silence that follows is different from before. Not suffocating, not hostile, but waiting. The guests lean in their breaths, held waiting for his reply. His wife hisses, "Don't you dare," clutching his arm. But this time he doesn't listen. He shakes her off harder this time, his eyes locking on mine. For the first time all night, I see the boy I raised flicker through the man he has become, lost, angry, but searching. The turning point has come. Whether he admits it tonight or not, the truth has cracked open a door that can never be closed again. The family has shifted. The tide has turned. And he knows it. I sit back, the key and the lawyer's file resting before me, the weight of their presence undeniable. I don't press further. Not yet. I let the silence work for me. Because sometimes silence speaks louder than confession. I thought my reply would be in words alone, but I see now my reply is also in the family's voice, rising against the lies. The storm does not end with a shout, but with something quieter, heavier. The air feels bruised. The table scarred by spilled wine, scattered crumbs and documents lying open like wounds that cannot be hidden. The guests sit rigid, their eyes still flickering between me, my son, and the old box that has changed everything. My son no longer shouts, his chest no longer heaves with rage. He sits slumped, his gaze locked on the papers, his hands trembling in his lap. His wife hovers beside him, her whispers urgent and frantic, but he doesn't respond. The fury that once tied them together seems to have fractured her voice, sounding shrill where once it commanded. The family murmurs among themselves, not whispers anymore, words spoken plainly, openly. She left it for both of them. He hid it all these years. We should have known. Their eyes are no longer on me, no longer accusing. They are on him. The judgment is clear. I sit back in my chair, my hand resting on the wooden box. My breath is steady, but inside I feel the exhaustion seep through me. Victory, if this is what it is, does not taste sweet. It tastes bitter, like ash, like years lost to silence that no truth can give back. An aunt reaches across the table and places her hand gently over mine. Her eyes are soft, filled with a compassion I didn't know I needed. "You did right," she whispers. She would be proud. Her words sink into me, heavy but comforting. I nod faintly, though my throat tightens. Across the table, my son finally speaks. His voice is broken, almost childlike. I thought she wanted me to do it alone. His eyes glisten, and for the first time tonight, I see the boy I raised lost, frightened, clutching at responsibility too heavy for his hands. She never wanted you to be alone, I say quietly. Not then, not now, but you let anger blind you. His wife stiffens beside him. Don't listen to him. She snaps, her voice sharp, but her words sound empty now, brittle against the tide of truth. The family glares at her openly, no longer hiding their disdain. She senses it, the shift, the isolation, and for once, she has no power. My son buries his face in his hands. His shoulders shake, though no sob escapes. Silence surrounds him, but it is not the heavy silence that crushed me before. It is his silence now, his collapse, his reckoning. The guests begin to rise slowly, as though the weight of the evening has pressed them down long enough. A cousin gathers the children, ushering them away from the doorway. An uncle mutters that it's time to go, his eyes avoiding the wreckage of the table. Chairs scrape against the floor one by one, the sound harsh final. The celebration is over. I remain seated as they file out, murmuring goodbyes, their glances soft when they meet mine, cold when they meet his. His wife tries to salvage dignity, lifting her chin, but the way her hand grips his shoulder betrays her fear. She knows the family has turned. She knows they will not forget tonight. When the last guest leaves, the house grows eerily quiet. The only sounds are the ticking of the clock and the faint hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. My son still sits at the table, staring at the papers spread before him. His wife paces behind him, her anger simmering, her whispers now directed only at him. I rise slowly, my knees stiff, my body heavier than when I arrived. I place the brass key back into the box and close the lid, the clasp snapping shut with a sharp click. I came here tonight with nothing but a letter, I say softly. I leave with the same. But the truth is no longer hidden. What you do with it now is up to you. He doesn't look at me, not directly, but his hand twitches as if reaching for the documents, then stops midway. His silence is his answer. I turn toward the door. Behind me, his wife hisses something. I cannot hear her voice, sharp, slicing into him. He doesn't reply. The collapse is complete. As I step into the night air, the cool breeze washes over me, carrying away the heat of the storm inside. The sky above is clear now, the storm clouds gone, but the damage remains. I thought tonight would end with me leaving in shame, but I walk away knowing the truth is no longer mine to carry alone. The night air greets me like a balm, cool against my skin, carrying the faint scent of cut grass and rain-soaked earth. I close the door behind me, and the echo of the evening storm stays trapped inside that house. Out here, there is only silence, a different kind of silence, not heavy with judgment, but open, almost forgiving. I walk slowly to my car, the weight of the wooden box under my arm. It feels heavier now, not because of its contents, but because of everything it carries. Memories, proof, keys to doors, both literal and unseen. I open the car door, slide into the driver's seat, and let the leather embrace me with familiar creaks. For a moment, I don't start the engine. I just sit there, staring through the windshield at the quiet street. Porch lights glow faintly in the distance, moths circling lazily. The world outside is indifferent to what just unfolded, yet my own world has shifted irrevocably. I turn the key and the car hums to life. The headlights cut across the empty road, illuminating the silence ahead. Slowly, I pull away from the curb, the tires crunching against gravel, carrying me farther from the house, where my son's voice once shouted me down, and where the truth finally shouted back. The road stretches long and empty. Each streetlight flickers briefly in my rearview mirror before fading into the dark. I grip the steering wheel tightly, my knuckles pale, my mind replaying every detail, his raised voice, her reckless outburst, the gasp of the family as the documents spread across the table. The lawyer's file lies on the seat beside me, its edges frayed, but its weight undeniable. For years I carried the burden of knowing. Tonight, that burden shifted. It is no longer just mine. A memory surfaces the first time I taught him to drive. He was 16, nervous, his hands gripping the wheel so tightly, his arms shook. Breathe, I had told him. The road won't wait, but it also won't rush you. Just steer steady. He laughed nervously, then jerked forward too fast, nearly hitting the curb. But eventually he steadied. He learned. And now I wonder, will he steady again? Or has the road he chose curved too far away from me? I pass Mrs. Holloway's house. She's out front, still trimming her rose bushes in the dark, as if she knew I would come this way. She looks up, her eyes meeting mine through the windshield, and gives a slow nod. No words, no questions, just a nod that says she saw, she knew, she warned. I lift a hand faintly from the wheel in acknowledgement. The farther I drive, the quieter the world becomes. The houses thin, the trees grow thicker, their shadows stretching across the road like long fingers. The hum of the engine is the only sound, steady, constant, grounding me. I roll down the window slightly, letting the night air rush in. It smells of wet earth and pine, sharp and clean, washing away the taste of wine and bitterness that clung to the dining room air. For a moment I let myself imagine she is sitting beside me, my wife, her presence filling the silence. I picture her hand resting lightly on my arm, her voice soft, steady. "You did right. You carried it as long as you had to, now let it go." Tears sting at my eyes, though they do not fall. I blink them back, focusing on the road. The headlights carve a path ahead, and for the first time in years, I don't feel lost. I feel released. But release does not mean closure. Not yet. The house behind me still trembles with unrest. My son still sits amid the wreckage of his lies, his wife still hissing poison in his ear. The family will talk. Whispers will grow into stories, stories into judgments. The storm may have passed, but its aftermath will ripple for years. I grip the steering wheel tighter, my jaw set. I know tonight was only the beginning. The letter in my pocket, still unopened, still unread aloud, waits for its moment. The key in the box, still gleaming faintly under the lid, holds promises not yet unlocked. The road bends ahead, curving into darkness. I follow it, the headlights guiding me, my breath steady now. I thought leaving that house would feel like exile, but I realize as the road stretches before me, it feels like freedom. The road winds steadily beneath my tires, the hum of the engine a low lullaby, but my mind refuses to rest. Each mile I drive away from that house, I carry with me the voices, the silence, and the truths that shattered the night. I pull off onto a quiet overlook, a place I haven't visited in years. The hillside dips into a valley below, dotted with faint clusters of lights from homes scattered in the distance. I cut the engine and sit in the stillness, the car ticking softly as it cools. The wooden box rests on the seat beside me, and for a long moment I simply stare at it. How strange, I think, that so much of a life can be locked into such a small thing paper keys were. My wife's handwriting, her careful signatures, her letters meant for us both. She tried to tie us together even from beyond the grave, but grief, pride, and anger unraveled those threads. I lean back in my seat, close my eyes, and let the memories come. Her laughter in the kitchen as she burned the first cake she ever tried to bake. The way she hummed quietly when she folded laundry, a tune with no words but full of comfort. The way she looked at our son when he was born, as if the world itself had been placed in her arms. And then I see the boy he once was, running across a soccer field, waving at me in the stands, falling asleep in the back seat after long drives, his small head lolling against my shoulder when I carried him inside. The boy who once whispered, "Don't leave me, Dad," when thunder shook the house at night. How did that boy become the man who shouted, "Leave my house"? The answer is not simple. Pain reshapes us, grief hardens us, and silence corrodes more than we realize. I thought giving him space to grieve was love. I thought letting him take his anger out on me was strength. But perhaps what he needed most was a father who spoke when it mattered, who refused to let distance grow into estrangement. The reflection cuts deep. I am not innocent in this storm. Yes, he lied. Yes, his wife twisted him, but I too stayed silent for too long, clutching my truths like weapons instead of offering them like gifts. The lawyer's file may have vindicated me tonight, but it also condemned me. It showed what I carried all these years, proof of love, proof of trust, proof of legacy. And yet I waited until anger forced my hand. Forgiveness. The word tastes heavy on my tongue. Can I forgive him? Can he forgive me? A part of me whispers, no. The humiliation, the years of silence, the cruel words they carved, wounds that cannot be erased with one night of revelations. But another part, softer, quieter, insists, yes, because he is still my son, and because my wife would not want us to end here at a table shattered by lies. The stars glimmer faintly above the valley. I roll down the window and let the night air sweep in cool and steady. It smells of earth and pine, grounding me. I think of the empty chair at the dinner table, the way it haunted me all night. My wife used to say it was for the unseen guest, for the one we loved but couldn't see. Perhaps tonight that chair was hers. Perhaps she sat with us in silence, watching, waiting, guiding the storm toward truth. I turn to the box again. My hand hovers over it, tempted to open it once more, to reread the letters, to hold the key. But I stop. Some things don't need to be reopened. Some truths have already spoken. Instead, I take out the folded paper from my pocket. My own letter. I unfold it, smoothing the creases, and read the words I wrote in the quiet of my empty kitchen weeks ago. You are my son. No amount of anger or silence will change that. This legacy is not mine or yours alone. It is ours. One day you will understand, and when you do, I will still be here. My voice trembles as I whisper the words aloud, a one-tone in the car. The night absorbs them, carrying them into the valley. And for the first time tonight, my chest feels lighter. I thought betrayal was the final word in our story. But I realize now, reflection is the beginning of something else. Perhaps not reconciliation yet, but the possibility of it. The valley below lies quiet, dotted with small lights flickering like memories that refuse to fade. I sit in the stillness, the engine off the box beside me, the letter folded neatly in my lap. The night air is cool, carrying the faint sound of crickets. For the first time in years, I allow myself to breathe without the weight of silence pressing down. I think of my wife, her handwriting bold, her voice echoing through the documents she left behind. She wanted unity, not division, legacy, not secrecy. And though anger and lies nearly buried her wishes, the truth rose tonight like the dawn breaking through clouds. I think of my son. His shout still echoes. Leave my house, yet his silence afterward speaks louder. I saw the boy I once knew, buried beneath years of bitterness. He is not lost forever. Perhaps broken things can be mended if both sides choose to reach for the thread. As I drive away at last, the road unfolding before me, I know the storm is not truly over. But storms are not only destroyers, they clear the air. They water the roots, they leave behind the possibility of growth. I whisper into the night, family is never erased, not by anger, not by silence. And with that, I close the chapter of this night, not with bitterness, but with a fragile hope that tomorrow the story may begin again. Thank you for staying with me through this story. If it touched you, please subscribe and continue with the next story in the playlist.